The Titanic did not sink the way you think. In 1898, 14 years before the Titanic sank, author Morgan Robertson wrote Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan, a novel about a massive, unsinkable ship that hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sank, leading to heavy loss of life. The eerie similarities between the fictional Titan and the real-life Titanic disaster still baffle people to this day. The story isn't just about an iceberg, it's about human error, ignored warnings, and catastrophic decisions. Here's the truth about what really sank the unsinkable ship. When the Titanic left port on April 10, 1912, it wasn't just the largest ship in the world. It was a symbol of progress, an engineering marvel. But beneath the polished exterior lay cracks. To meet tight deadlines, the ship's construction was rushed. Cheaper materials were used, including weak iron rivets that held the hull together. Experts later discovered that these rivets buckled under pressure, tearing the ship open like a zipper when it hit the iceberg. The Titanic wasn't unsinkable. It was fragile, and nobody knew it. On April 14th, the Titanic received 6 separate warnings of icebergs ahead. Ships in the area urged caution. Yet Captain Edward Smith didn't slow down. Captain Edward Smith was the captain of the Titanic. Some people in history were really critical of Captain Smith because they said he was told that there were icebergs but he didn't slow down, and of course it sunk, and he also went down with the ship. He kept Titanic steaming ahead at nearly full speed. Why? Because reaching New York early would cement Titanic's reputation as the greatest ship ever built. But the ship's lookouts faced another problem. No binoculars. A key box containing their binoculars was left behind, locked and inaccessible. By the time they spotted the iceberg, it loomed just 500 meters away. In that moment, the decision was made. Turn the ship. Ironically, this attempt to dodge the iceberg caused the greatest damage. Instead of hitting it head-on, which might have limited the damage to 1-2 compartments, the iceberg scraped along the side, puncturing 6 compartments and sealing the ship's fate. Titanic wasn't sunk by an iceberg alone. It was sunk by a series of human choices and errors. The Titanic had lifeboats for just over half of the people on board. Not because of space, there was room for more, but because too many lifeboats ruined the aesthetic. It gets worse. When the lifeboats were launched, they were half empty. The crew, unprepared for disaster, didn't know how to organize the evacuation. Lifeboats meant for 65 people left, with 12 or 20. Passengers were left screaming for help as the ship tilted into the freezing Atlantic. Over 1,500 people died that night. Not because there weren't enough lifeboats, but because arrogance blinded the planners. When the Titanic sank, it wasn't just passengers who drowned. It was the reputation of the White Star Line, the ship's owners. To protect themselves, they downplayed the tragedy. Survivors' accounts were dismissed. Investigations avoided placing blame on human error. The world was told the iceberg was to blame, as if the disaster was inevitable. But the truth was buried with the wreckage. Titanic didn't have to sink. It sank because human ego, greed, and pride refused to see the danger ahead. Drop a follow if you enjoyed this, or probably didn't, so you could try again.